with those kind of names, it's pretty intimidating. And so I think by the time openers came around, I was pretty nervous. Because like Jacob mentioned earlier, I have had some big meet experience, but this is the biggest meet I've done. And I think relative to a lot of these guys, I don't have as much experience in those meet environments. And so I was pretty nervous. And on my first attempt, not one of those cues that I usually am pretty good about keeping, not one of them. And so I ended up keeping cutting that squat really high. Felt like the bar was gonna roll right off my back because I couldn't get my upper back tight, and it was just, yeah, it didn't go that great.
It was kind of a hot mess, and I asked the judge just for shits and giggles, what was the red for? And he was like, height. That wasn't parallel. I went over to Ben immediately and I said, we're going up. We have a plan. He knows me as a coach. I'm fairly conservative. 90% of the time or more, somebody misses an opening squat, I'm not going to increase it. I've never had a lifter bomb. I don't want to ever have a lifter bomb. I don't want to ever travel across the country and have a lifter and then bomb. But we came there for a reason. I knew he had the strength, so I called 310 kilos, which was a very small jump compared to what we wanted. 15 pounds, 16 pounds, whatever. But I told him, I got up in his face, I said, I have the confidence in you that you can hit this lift. And I felt like that triggered and a little bit of more confidence in himself, hopefully. Always as a coach, you're trying to kind of manipulate emotions as much as you can. But really, he came out on the second one and crushed it. It was plenty deep enough. We still got one red from the left side judge. And I said, hey, was it depth again? He goes, oh, yeah. And so I said, okay, Ben, we're not going to convince that guy. Stan Efferding was on the other side. I said, let's convince him. The head judge was being pretty fair. So after the second attempt, my wife, who's a very good attempt caller, we have a kind of a hand signals that we do. She wanted me to take 10 kilos, and I wanted to take 10 kilos. And he came off, and I don't know how you felt at the time, but the confidence wasn't quite where I wanted it to be. And you're like, what are you going to call? And a lot of times he'll just let me call it, and the number doesn't really matter. He'll do it. And so the fact that he was asking me, I just took that down and I said, let's go up 7 and call 317. And he said, that's perfect. So I think we were both on the same page there. Is that about?
Yeah, I actually expected you to want to go up 15 kilos. I thought you were going to call 325.
I wanted to, but I hate taking a bigger jump 2-3 than 1-2 because I feel like it feels heavier for the lifter. And so I felt like I could push that a little bit, maybe get 10 kilos, but ultimately I just wanted to pad that total. I knew that if we missed that third and we only went one squat, that just emotionally that was going to be tough for him.
Yes.
And then numbers-wise, it was going to be really tough for us and put a lot of pressure on that third pull.
And I have missed openers before, at the Arnold in 2014, that was kind of the same high-pressure meet environment, and that was the worst meet of my life. Missed my opener twice, made it on my third, and so I was perfectly fine going conservative, knowing that, coming in we had a stretch goal of a 2,000-pound total. And I knew after missing that first squat and having to take 310 on my second, that 2,000 wasn't reasonable at that point, and so I was perfectly fine. We're just going to play for the win at this point, take an easy 700, and it was a pretty easy third attempt.
The third looked the best. I think the nerves kind of gone away. I think you were used to the environment. I mean, it was a really cool, high energy environment, but that's hard to prepare for. There's a judge 5 feet in front of you, and hundreds of people 10 feet beyond that. So, I think 317 was a really good call. It's a good number, 700 pounds. We're going to round up. Something he had done before, and I think the strength was there for probably 325 pretty easily. We had hoped possibly go as high as 330, or that's what I had kind of my best case scenario. And the strength might have been there, but we were both really happy with the attempt calls, and to come away from almost the worst possible start other than getting hurt, and to come out of that with a 700 squat at 191, which is a PR Wilkes squat or something like that. I thought that went really, really well and kind of set the tone for the rest of the day, like, okay, forget about totals and all-time blah, 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 and really just focus on what it takes to win. And so that takes some of the ego away, I think, and that always helps. So.
And once squats are over, the nerves really aren't an issue anymore. So.
Yeah. Bench was just like, let's go and do the plan. It didn't matter. We didn't have a lot of reserve on bench. We were a little bit conservative there. I opened a little heavier than he wanted because I wanted small jumps just in case something happened. So we went 175, 185, 192. So a 10 kilo jump, 7 kilo jump, which I think is pretty much ideal. I think it's clear that he'll be able to take 195 to 200 on his next meet, very easily. And we'll just keep chipping away at that. That just takes some time.
Yeah, I think the only thing to mention there is that Jacob mentioned earlier with the elbows on the start command. I have pretty bad elbow tendonitis in both elbows, and so it's pretty painful to
and it was flaring up that day
all the way. And yeah, it was real bad on that day.
He came up to me and he's like, "Is anybody selling elbow sleeves?" So
yeah,
it was definitely in his head a little bit.
And so on warm-ups, I wasn't locking my elbows at all, just to try and not hurt as little as possible before the actual attempts. And so that's part of the reason why I think those start commands ended up taking longer than I had expected.
And they were fair across the board to everybody. They weren't picking on him at all. I think the lesson learned there is in training, obviously get the elbow as cleared up as we can, and then before the next meet, kind of practice really selling that start, because it's just a waste of energy.
Yeah.
But it was something we just had to deal with, and I thought you did a real good job there.
Mm-hmm.
So after bench, it was pretty hot. They had turned off the AC because the power in the building was kind of getting flaky. It seemed like a long time. There was a couple bench only guys before deads, and so we really had time to focus on numbers. And I tried to get Ben to go outside where it was actually cooler, kind of get away from some of the other lifters. I think it's worth noting, by the way, at this meet, for the people that weren't there or weren't in the background, it's a really interesting environment when all these people who wilks 500 to 600 are super chill in the warm-up room.
Yes.
There was not a lot of, just bro-douchery like you may see at a local meet with the quote-unquote strong guys. I thought it was really interesting. There wasn't a lot of psyching up. There wasn't a lot of slapping around. There was, there's loud music and people were intense. But for the lifters who are trying to get to that level, I think it's worth noting that all of these lifters, to a T, were very internal at this meet. And, we got to kind of observe that going into deads. And I think, Ben has done a really good job in going from one of these like kind of loud lifters that gets slapped a whole lot to being a little bit more internal. And we say that for when we feel like we really need it.
Yeah.
We don't do trap slaps for warm-ups and nose torque for 135 or anything like that. So that was just kind of an interesting observation, I thought. It was actually a way more kind of, I'm not going to say calm or relaxed, but kind of chill from a lifter's perspective and from other coaches' perspectives. I just thought that's worth noting.
Yeah. And I think I might use the word professional versus chill, because everyone was very focused, right? There was nobody relaxed there, but
I think professional, and these people, everybody was there to win or to do their absolute best.
Mm-hmm.
And they pushed themselves hard, and it was a really cool thing to be a part of. And I think those types of meets are really, really interesting because, as soon as it's over with, everybody's hugging and happy. And I didn't get to go to the next day, but there was a banquet and all this cool stuff. But during the meet, man, it's a different experience. And I coached at IPF Worlds, and even from that kind of ambiance, it's quite a bit different. So, so going into deads, Ben was practicing some meditation and trying to calm himself and stay cool and stay hydrated and fed. And I think you did a really good job on all that. Do you agree?
Yeah, I just felt tired by then. Again, never sleep great the night before a meet. It was a little bit longer day than I expected. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. And with the heat and everything, I was just tired. And so, warm-ups were fine. Warm-ups were nothing.
It was interesting because we shared a platform with Yuri and Payne, and it was exhausting for me to get loading 50-kilo plates, but it was really good.
Yeah, I didn't load anything.
I wouldn't, but I thought it went really well. We used some straps to save grip. Grip has been a little bit of an issue. We got some, sometimes you get some looks using straps in the warm-up room, but then Yuri also did it.
Yeah.
And so everybody's like, okay, well then there we go. So he uses no belt, but uses straps. And I think that may have helped a little bit. I thought we did the timing of the warm-ups really well. I don't think we you didn't seem to be sweating or overheating or anything like that. About the only interesting thing I thought was that Dan took his final warm-up at least 20 minutes out.
Mm-hmm.
And we took ours about 10 to 12 minutes is what we were shooting for. We'd practiced that.
Yeah.
But other than that, I thought it went pretty clean. We opened at what, 325?
Yes.
What's that in pounds?
717, something
Yeah,
like that.
717. Something you've done for God knows how many reps. I thought it was pretty uneventful. Ben is he hook grips, and you didn't wear tape on your fingers, and they took forever on the down command, and I was a little concerned about that. But I knew that what we had to call on that second attempt, and that was 355. We knew that we would get our 363 Wilks, and that if Andrew, we knew he was our biggest competition, we had a strong feeling he would take 375 on his second, and that would put him at 562 Wilks and change. And 355 did not look easy like it normally does in training, but it looked fine. If you watch the video, it was a long down command, but it was a good lift, and we kind of went back and forth because you can change the third deadlift, obviously. I think our best case, God, what was our best case scenario?
Well, our best case about a month or two out was 380 kilos, which is 840, something like that. And
that was sumo, I think.
Yes, that was sumo. And so I think 825, which is 375, was our best case in conventional.
Now, I had adjusted those down in my head because his last really heavy day of 10 days out actually ended up being pretty much a disaster on deadlifts.
Yeah, I think I peaked a week too early. So I think 2 weeks out, 2.5 weeks out, was when I decided I was just going to go conventional. The plan that day was to pull 800 for a double, supposed to be pretty easy sumo, and I pulled 755 and it felt RPE 11, and so I was like,